what are you looking for? Are you looking for cash flow, or are you looking to build equity? You might be in a position where you love work, you do not want to quit work whatsoever, you don't need to replace your salary, so you're only boxing for the future. And in that scenario, cash flow isn't for you. And you've told me yourself after I've gone through that with you that cash flow isn't for you. Look at it on the other end of the stick, which is majority of the times of what we see, is that people want to get out of work. They want cash flow.
Welcome to another episode of the I Love Monday podcast. Today we have Saif Rehan, who was an accountant and is now a property developer, and he helps people build their portfolio. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, mate.
So today I wanted to speak to you about your journey from being an accountant, working for someone else, to now going into property development, helping your clients build their own portfolio as well, their property portfolio. But tell us where it all began from a young age. Where did this entrepreneurial spirit come from?
I come from a family of self-employed businessmen. That's going back to granddad's day, great-granddad's day. My great-granddad came from Pakistan in the 60s and came here, worked in the mills and set up his own business in the background. And I think it was just, that was one thing that was always instilled. As I grew up, it was always that, we would go and work for, or the cousins would go and work for the family's business, whether it was, whether it was a takeaway, whether it was a corner shop, or whether it was, in our case, which is jewelers. So our family trade has always been gold jewelry. So we always had that mentality, but I always grew up with my old man telling me that I wasn't able to get into the business until I was done from university. Whether that was a form of him pushing me to go that route and then see whether the career life was for me, or whether I would just then dip into back into the business. For me, then, it sort of fell on with a lot of my younger cousins then following the same route of going into university. I was one of probably the first few that got into that sort of line, where it was quite uncommon for us to go down the route of education. I quite enjoyed it. It was nice. It was, the idea of, going out. And back then, the apprentice used to be quite good. So, seeing people on the TV that were of that ilk, then that was where my inspiration was. But always had a keen interest in business in general, whether it was just from, dad doing business and watching him do business. My mum and her family have been, they've had a corner shop since the 70s before they went into the jewelry trade. So, always being around that, get something for a £5, sell it for a £10 sort of mentality, as such. So that was where business came, and then maths just came as a sort of byproduct of it. And then, it's always been, immersing myself. I'm always one that instead of watching a movie, I'll watch, or a new movie that's out, I'll watch The Big Short. Something that's got some form of business or economy related to it. But it all stems back from that.
Did you join the family business after uni?
I'm passively involved in the family business, not in full capacity, whether it's helping out from a finance perspective, in terms of doing the accounting side of things, or whether it comes to actually going in and pulling a shift out on a Saturday afternoon, or doing anything along them lines. But not fully immersively into the business.
And you've got quite a few jewelry shops around the UK, or
so mainly in the north. So it's granddad came, and then basically his relatives started following along, and then suddenly our family was then sort of dotted around the whole of Yorkshire, Northwest, and Lancashire, and even into Greater Manchester. And then each family has their own store, basically. All of them sometimes work conclusively, some of them work separate. But we've got this little support network of jewelers. More than likely, if you were to go around the north and you saw jewelers, we were connected to them in some form of way.
That's quite interesting. How did they start building? Was it more like one relative opened the shop, jewelry shop, done well, and then another one.
Yeah, so simple model. You'd come, you'd say to me, I want to open a jeweler shop. We're family. I loan you the startup gold, in essence. And gold's that beautiful commodity where, like, I just need to give you the solid bars of gold, and you would then go to a supplier and exchange that for fine jewelry for you to send. For example, I would give you, let's say, 5 kilos or 2 kilos, whatever it might be, and we'd have a simple agreement that come the end of you ever wanting to finish or you wanting to sell up, all you would do is you just repay me back the capital that I've lent to you.
In pounds or in gold?
In gold.
So
In gold.
essentially
Yeah.
invested.
So yeah, so effectively I'd loaned you gold, you would pay me back in gold. So there was no risk or rate risk as such. And that capital was then returned back to me. I would then give that to the other person, and then to the other person. You were then expected to do that with somebody else. And then suddenly a little support network had been created from that. But very simple business model.
It's very effective as well, and obviously whoever's loaning the initial gold gets back more in pound value when they receive it back. Because obviously
That's
gold price
if
goes
the
up.
gold price has gone up by that
Yeah.
time. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then that must mean your family unit is really good.
Yeah, some differences here and there, but overall it's been cool. Like we buy, like our suppliers are family. We buy off certain individuals in that we'll collectively buy off one supplier or whatever it might be. But I'm not that involved. I just know it from a holistic perspective as opposed to how it all works in the middle of it all.
After uni, what were you doing? What did you study at uni? Accounting.
So accounting and finance at University of Manchester. Stayed quite local, typical sort of Asian route as such. I'm the eldest son, eldest child, so always wanted to sort of stay close to home. And then went on to work for Enterprise, the car rental firm, in their accounting department. Had a stint there, which was quite decent because they operate business on a completely different level to how you would probably see in normal corporate. Couple of fundamental things that I found were really, really cool was that the idea of a mentor lunch.
Mentor lunch.
Yeah, so you could be the CEO and you could be someone right at the top of the tree, let's say within the region, as opposed to going to like the UK CEO or anything along them lines. But you could be the Northwest, head of group rental or whatever it might be. And I can send you an email and I could say to you, Zed, is there any chance I can book in a mentor lunch with you? And you'd be obligated to say yes.
Is that company policy?
Yeah. Time permitting. So obviously you being the busiest guy, I might be booking something with you 4 months in advance, for argument's sake, because you might only want to do once a week with an individual. So I'd come and have a meeting with you. I'd drive up to the office, the Northwest office, and we'd actually physically go out for a Pizza Hut. And I could ask you questions about anything to do with my role. I'm struggling with this. I don't know how to do this. How do I get to this role? How do I, where's the business going? Is this something that I can learn about? And you're literally learning of people that are like 5 levels ahead of you. And you've just joined the business, sort of thing. And it was the same for me from an accounting side, where I wanted to learn about all the different departments of enterprise, whether it was vehicle repair, whether it was vehicle selling, whether it was vehicle buying. For me to be a good accountant and be able to offer my opinion, I needed to know how the business and the crux of it all worked. If I wanted to, if I needed something from, say, a branch manager, and the branch manager had its fair share of challenges, and for some reason Seth was just another person that was contacting him for information, how do I voice and message that task to that individual, but in a way where it's an easy win for me? So all I did was I'll go to the business development manager, which is what I did, and asked him how does he drive his results within his team. And he gave me one simple tip that I applied, and it just completely changed the way that my results were performing. So that was a very interesting concept.
What was the tip?
The tip was, let's say for argument's sake, if you have 30 individuals to chase or 30 sets of clients to chase for debt, for argument's sake, how do you like drill through that, as opposed to me giving you a list of 30 people at the start of the month there, then you saying to you, you've got 20 days to collect all of this, please. And the tip was, at the start of the day or the start of the month, whatever was the most highest value, all you would do for that one day is just focus on that one client. And then second day, focus on the second client. Third day, focus on the third client. And at the end of every day, you had to give me an update as to what you did. So now I wasn't asking you to chase 30 people. I was asking for you to chase one person a day, which is literally a 10-minute phone call. And what I found with that was that you might not do it every single day, but you did it 15 out of the 30 days. And 15 out of those 30 days, we were like doubling the results of what we were achieving the month prior, just by breaking that task down or voicing that task in a completely different way. And that stuck with me in all walks of life now.
It's like when they say if you have a goal, like a large goal, you should break it down into small bits.
Absolutely.
Into easy, doable tasks.
100%.
For example, if it's like, open a new office, if you just write open a new office, your mind is going to be like, there's a million things to do to open a new office. But if you do contact 5 agents, or go drive around, see what offices are available, sign lease, little tasks like that, go view the offices, it makes it much more easier and doable. And then, like you said, you don't have to do the whole thing in one day. You can do 1 or 2 a day and then break it down.
Absolutely. So that was interesting. Then went from enterprise, got recruited by a recruitment consultant for a company called Capland. Became the finance manager there. They were just kickstarted the apprenticeship scheme as a training provider. So that was a really, really exciting time to join the business, from literally being at this division of the business that was probably making 100 grand a year in revenue, all the way within 2 years was making 60 million a year, and seeing the transitional change within process and how that business scaled and how that business grew and how we were just approving new staff requests like every month because businesses were growing. So that was an interesting time. And then from there, while I was at Capland, it sort of kick-started where we could work from home. This was just pre-COVID. So the idea of flexi working got introduced a little bit, which was great. And then it was at that point where I started to then delve into property a little bit more, because I felt like we had moments or windows within work where I could work later in the evenings to catch up on work, but then during the day I could go out and do viewings and that sort of stuff. And the manager was fully aware of what was going on. So that's what kick-started the desire, really.
What made you want to do the properties?
Standard story again. Homes and a hammer. I still remember this vividly. I was working, and I have this tendency sometimes. I'll work on the dining table and I've got the telly in front of me, and we'll watch something on the telly, and something came up where a guy had finished the project. It was a normal flip, and the project was like 6 months long, and the guy physically did no work. It was obviously builders and everyone else that was doing little bits. He was basically paid for it all, and he made something like 60 grand profit on the flip. I just can't remember where the deal was. He made 60 grand profit, and there I was working away on a 26 grand a year salary. And I was just looking at this guy thinking, I'm grafting, and this guy's just paid for a builder to do up this flip for him. He's made 60 grand, double what my salary is, and he's not been there. And it took him half the year. And it was at that moment where I was like, right, okay. And then the other thing of it was, anyone that I knew that was doing well in life, or I would perceive to do well, nowadays perception's a big thing, but I would perceive to do well, whether it's the local community, whether it's someone that you've seen out, whether it's someone that you've got to know, someone that you know of, and they are doing well, have either dabbled or are in property. And for me, I just saw it as a little key, where it's like, if I'm in that, success has to follow. Like, obviously now we've realized that there's loads of different strategies that you can do, and that level to growth, to that level of wealth really is different for everyone. But that was the perception of success is what got me into property.
Do you remember the first property you bought?
It took me a while to buy my first property, actually. I only bought my first property about 8 months ago.
Okay.
So the first part of my property journey, I bought a property with a sort of partner, 2 partners even. We bought it really badly. We weren't in any frame property investors at the time. You know, didn't have any idea of professionalism at that moment in time, and continued going on from there. And to be fair, we've sold those properties and gone on, but professionally, only properly, after appraising a deal and thinking about a strategy and what we wanted to do, only properly bought my first property about 8 months ago. But for the 4 years prior to that, I've been building property portfolios for other people and providing a simple turnkey service.
Is that your main business, you'd say?
I would say it's the main driver of what brings attention to me on socials, is that angle of my business.
So how would you help? So if I came as a newbie to you and said, look, I've got 200 grand cash, how would you be able to help me?
So there's a multitude. The first thing that comes down to it is 2 real simple questions. What are you looking for? Are you looking for cash flow, or are you looking to build equity? You might be in a position where you love work, you do not want to quit work whatsoever, you don't need to replace your salary, so you're only boxing for the future. And in that scenario, cash flow isn't for you. And you've told me yourself, after I've gone through that with you, that cash flow isn't for you. Look at it on the other end of the stick, which is majority of the times of what we see, is that people want to get out of work. They want cash flow. Now, with 200 grand, and you say to me that you want cash flow, I'd be pointing you down the route of HMOs straight away. So you have a couple of strategies, which is buy-to-let, flip, or HMO. Commercial conversions, rent-to-rents, whatever, anything else, or strategies up here fall into these 3 buckets. You want to do a BRR, what are you going to do a BRR on? A buy-to-let or a HMO? You want to do a flip, you could do a buy-to-let flip, or you could do a HMO flip. You could do a family home flip. If you want to do a rent-to-rent, what are you going to do that on? A rent-to-rent or a buy-to-let, a rent-to-rent on a HMO, a rent-to-rent on an SA conversion that has been done from, say, a commercial conversion to 3 flats. It all comes down to those 3. Now, where you put those 3 in buckets, you look at flips. Flips are pure equity. There's no cash flow attributed to that model one single bit. So if you want equity, you might look at that and think, you know what, yeah, I'll take equity all day long. And flips are for me. I just need to build my pot. I'm not bothered about quitting work or anything along them lines. You look at the idea of cash flow, but equity building is slower, is HMO. And then you push onto that end of the spectrum. You want a bit of both, and buy-to-let's that one. You want something that's more equity, less cash flow, but there is an element of cash flow to the model. Look at prime real estate. Look at city centre apartments. Look at off-plan model. You want to do more cash flow and less equity building, but not as stringent as HMO. Go and buy at yields in the northeast of buy-to-lets. So it all values down to what end and what you're looking for, because the big thing that we have as a turnkey business is managing expectations. Now you come to me and you say 200k, I need a portfolio in 4 or 5 years time where I've got all my 200k out and I've got 10 properties. Could be possible.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, are we an asset management firm or are we a turnkey portfolio building firm? And we'll just offer you investments in that sense from there. So it really, really ranges. But I'd start off with a conversation of that kind. And now, depending on your answers to that, is then whether I shift you down the route of buy-to-lets. And with 200k, whether you start doing 2 buy-to-lets at a time, refinance those once they're done, and go out and do it again, or I shift you into doing one HMO project, we refinance that, and they go from there. The other main question that a lot of people forget is that pot dries up very quickly. When money is left in on a project, at what rate are you replacing your money in your pot? So let's say, for argument's sake, you say that you've got 200K, and I know that to do this project will require 200K of capital. Come the end of the project, you'll get 150K back, which means that you're now 50K down. You can't do that 200K project again.
Yeah, budget's gone lower.
Do you know what I mean? So at what rate can you replace that 50K? Is it going to take you 4 years to do that? Is it going to take you 1 year to do that? Or are you going to take that 150K and then go and do a flip and maybe recover 40 grand of that? So strategy comes down to a multitude of things, whether it's on the basis of, you coming back to me and saying, how do we look at it from that perspective? Now, we've done that for 4 years. We've done that with clients that come back to us on a repeat basis. And now more so, we're doing that with individuals that actually don't want to get involved in any of that. And then much rather say, Saif, take this capital, let's build something together and have a portfolio. And that's where my business is shifting a little bit now. Not completely, but trying to run it a bit more of a hybrid.
What are you seeing more of? Are you seeing more people who want to build cash flow, or more people who want to grow their pot?
At the minute, it's more cash flow. Right now, bills are going up. People, the standard cost of living crisis is real, and we're seeing that massively. We're seeing that with tenants. We're seeing it more so as property investors when we see how high rent is going.
Yeah.
And now in some areas around here, like, rents are an absolute joke. Like, I was thinking about doing my house up, and I thought, you know what, let's try and find a 4-bedroom house to rent for, 8-9 months. And we'll see how to look at it. This was a year and a half ago. I couldn't find anything less than £1,400 per month. For 8-9 months, that's another 12-13 grand almost. And, adding 12-13 grand onto your refurb budget was stringent for us.
Yeah.
But, how would, say, two individuals that are, earning 30K, 40K between themselves going to be paying 20 grand a year in rent if they've got a big family? Or if they want to have a big family, how are they going to get to that? So cash flow is the biggest conversation starter right now. Equity is more so what people are trying to build. That's the real wealth earner. But in order to be comfortable on an equity building strategy, you need that cash flow foundation in the background. Now, once you've built that, is where you can shift into that model. The idea of people going and then doing ground up developments, and that works if you've got the foundation covered for cash flow and coming in. Or you're going to have to then build your wages into that cost. I think, this is how it's going to need to do.
How are you seeing the increase of material and labor cost affecting your flips?
So we saw that massively in COVID. It was a horrible time to be developing in COVID, purely because there was so many people that were at home that wanted to see projects developed. There were so many builders that were getting inquiries. I remember being in a bathroom with a tiler that was tiling the bathroom, and his phone just did not stop for about 2 hours while I was there chatting to him. Did not stop. Every time he had to answer and say, sorry, I'm booked up for 4 months. Sorry, I'm booked up for 4 months. And honestly, it was crazy. You could be an absolute cowboy and you could go out and like rip a load of people off. That's how much work there was going. And it was a very, very interesting time, because as developers, one of the natural things that we like to do is we like to, watch our costs. Now, materials going up, you can't barter with that. You're not budging.
Yeah.
The supply was restricted. That material supplier was not willing to do any form of, conversation with you in terms of, trying to get a good rate. The only thing that they had, let alone even tell you when they could deliver the items to you, that was the next challenge. The difficulty then became was when you were negotiating with builders and you negotiate a price, let's say, for example, with myself, to tile your bathroom for £1,200. All of a sudden, we've had a conversation, blah, blah, blah. You've knocked me down to 900 quid. I've accepted.
Yeah.
My phone's off the blower. I've got 3 jobs there ready for me at £1,400, £1,300, and £1,350. I'm probably not going to show up for your job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of no-shows, a lot of people on social saying that, oh, my builders haven't turned up, my plasterers haven't turned up. Simple scenario. There was just too much work to go around. People were getting paid. The only difference is that if you were a developer that paid your builders on time, is where you had an element of loyalty.
Yeah.
Where people would look at it and think, oh, you know, I might go for that 1,500 guy over the 1,200 Saif, but I'm guaranteed Saif's going to pay me if I get the job done. I've never worked with this 1,500 guy before. And that's the other thing. We're sometimes worried about working with a builder and us getting screwed over, and they're just as worried on the other end of doing all the work and not being paid the money at the end of the week. So it was a very, very nerve-wracking time. Whereas now I feel like things have stabilized. You can actually go in and you can actually barter with suppliers. You can barter with builders. If anything, there's a little bit less work now operating. The builders that are doing well, the ones that I know of, are the ones that are actually getting a lot of work done off repeat landlords, where they know that, you know, these guys are still buying. And some builders that were more focused along the lines of doing home renovations for end users. Those are the builders that are struggling a little bit at the minute.
So now the material prices have now steadied a bit. How are the flips in terms of if you're looking to sell, the buying price and the end price, is the ROI still the same, or is it reduced a bit, or is it not worth doing?
So we're in a buyer's market now, and depending on how you're buying, you know, you can command some pretty cheap deals at this minute. Don't get me wrong, you know, standard scenarios come out there, like the amount of deals that we've tried to offer on, where the vendors have just thought, nah, it's all right, we'll go to auction instead. And then some of them go to auction and get way more than we offered, and some of them don't get anywhere near what we offered, and that deal then just ends up coming back to us. It all depends. So let's say you're buying, I think it strictly comes down to commitment. If you can show commitment in your offer, whether it's, you know, exchanging straight away with subject to a building survey, subject to planning, or subject to this, the seller has commitment. Now, when you shift to being a seller, I think the challenge right now in the market is what end of the market you're offering stock at. And, you know, this is right down your street. But what we found is that anything that's sort of within the, you know, up to 150K bracket, you're not struggling, because there's still enough first-time buyers out there that need a house, that don't mind, you know, sacrificing on their monthly payments, but all they've got is 10% to put down as a deposit. A newlywed couple, for argument's sake. We're doing a deal at the minute in a very strongly populated Asian area, and Asian areas are a market within themselves. Dad wants to buy his daughter a house down the road so that, you know, she can walk back whenever she wants, sort of thing. And with that comes its fair share of challenges. With that comes its, you know, fair share of like successes as well, really, when you think about it. So you've got that end of the market. Anything sort of 150 to sort of $500,000 right now up here is where you've got to be very careful about delivering a product that you know will sell. Like, you know, there's quite a lot of stock that is good and priced well is just sticking on the market.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of people that at that price point in that area that want to buy. You go north of $500,000, now you're at a specific select type of buyer, in which case there might be quite a lot of people that will be selling an old house that they've built up a lot of equity in that will then want to buy this house either with a small mortgage or actually just top it up and buy it cash. And we're finding at that end you're not really struggling as well. So it's that bit in the middle.
We're finding quite the same in the London market, where the 2-bed, 1-bed flats, which are at decent rental yields, where investors would normally step up, they're not buying that probably because of the interest rates. But the houses which are 500-600, where a family wants to move in, they're getting sold. And then anything north of that, they're getting sold as well. But the flat market is suffering, where the investor market is suffering.
Of course.
That's what I've noticed. Landlords are exiting in London, but I've noticed that they're not entering. But if someone is buying to live in, they'll buy it.
It's similar. Like, I think you've just got to be very clear on what end of the market you want to box in. Like for me, I'm looking at small portfolio landlords. That's just what I'm focusing on right now. An individual who's struggling to, or hasn't got the capital to pay to refurb the whole house on 4 houses, for argument's sake. If they need to spend 20 grand on each house, they haven't got 80 grand there. EPCs, they're worried about EPCs changing. Condition is going down because they're not touching them. Mortgage interest is going up. So it gets to a scenario where for this landlord, because that product and where they're placed and how they are as a landlord, their business is failing, where they're not actually making a monthly profit. Now those properties are liabilities. In those scenarios, you could actually have a conversation with that landlord and just offer to clear the mortgages for them. So listen, sell them to us, but we need the mortgages cleared.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Because we've literally just completed on a transaction of 6 houses in the exact same scenario, where for that landlord, they physically didn't have the time because they couldn't afford to make, the hole in mortgage payments. I think over the 6 houses, it was costing them about 750 quid a month, based on how their interest rates went up. So 750 quid a month, if they were having to pay that every single time, it was just absolutely burning a hole in their monthlies. All of those houses are owned personal name as well, so no limited companies, none of that. And they were royally struggling. And then the tax bills that we were getting hit with. So we came in and basically just offered to buy them out, but we wanted to have them at a decent value, and we're literally just clearing the mortgages on all 6 houses.
You deal with a lot of joint ventures as well, right? What kind of challenges do you face with them? Because they're not always so straightforward.
Yeah.
And obviously problems do occur, especially when visions change or they don't align. How do you deal with that?
The vision aspect of it is like you can't help. Like, you fall out of bed with your partner, I think the difference of it when it comes to talking about joint ventures is misunderstanding that one size fits all. You come to me and say, Saif, I've got 200 grand, I want to invest. I say to you, cool, let's invest it. We'll split profits 50-50. I do that. I don't know about your situation. I don't know about what's going on. That might just not work for you. The deals that we're getting, the return on a buy-to-let, if it's 250 quid a month, are you going to settle for £125 a month? Probably not. If I sell you that as a vision. The second thing comes down to it is how can you play with different levers to make that JV agreement better between yourselves. So for example, you feel like you're bringing the biggest thing to the table, which is cash. But let's be real, there's 3 things that you need to deliver a deal. 1, someone's got to find the deal. 2nd, someone's got to deliver the deal. And 3rd, someone's got to fund the deal. In that scenario, you're only bringing 1 of the 3. I'm bringing 2 of the 3. But you attribute more value to the cash. You can have the cash, but if you haven't got the deal, you can't do the deal. You can have the cash and you can have the deal, but if you don't know how to deliver it, you can't have the deal. So it's understanding what brings to the table in order to make it work. So in that scenario, can you do a deal with somebody where you say to me, Seth, Zed, for you 60%, I'll have 40%, but I'm going to charge you a PM fee. I'm going to get reimbursed for my time, and you're going to get reimbursed for bringing all the capital to the table. And that's when you look at it and you split it back to, how much each person's getting, and we've literally just done a deal like that, it's worked out that the investor would have got 52% and I would have got 48% if my PM fee wasn't involved.
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways to do it, so many different ways that you can look at it.
It's about rejigging the numbers, isn't it?
Absolutely. You look at it and you say, Saif, I need to make at least 20% of my cash on this flip. I do the numbers, I look at it and think, it's a 30% return available. Let's say the flip is 150 grand and you want to make 100 grand. Well, I accept 50 grand right now to do this flip. As a project manager, that probably would have charged you 20 grand as a PM fee. And theoretically, it's just another project for me. There's no real change in what my role is, whether I'm doing the JV with Zed or whether I'm PMing for Zed. All I know is I'm earning 30 grand more.
For you,
so it makes sense. So all I would do then is, instead of just boxing down the route of 50-50, I look at the numbers and be like, right, okay, Zed, 65-35, let's do it, done. Shake on it. Another investor that we're looking at is where the investor, for bringing money to the table, he's basically taking, it's a similar principle, he's basically taking 10% of the equity first for being the partner that brings the capital to the table. I'm charging a sourcing fee and a full project management fee on the deals that we do together. The rest of it, we split in the middle 50-50. Okay? Now, we've decided that he will basically build the company, whatever he wants to charge, a consultation fee, whatever it might be, an arrangement fee, whatever you want to call it, in order for him to provide access of his capital to this JV. I am going to be charging sourcing fees and project management fees to this JV in order to bring my skill set and bring the deals to the table. So we've got that. The deals can happen. We know that we have set an exit point of 5 years. So we're going to crack on and build as much equity as we can for 5 years by buying these 3 houses, selling 2, keeping 1, selling that in 2 years' time because we've got a bigger deal here, and just literally moving money around as a pot to know that in 5 years' time, my time's been covered, his return on cash has been covered, whatever equity we build on top of that is just a bonus. So it's no difference to how I'm doing business as a PM, no difference to how he would be talking to me as an angel investor, but we're just building equity as a partnership. Now, how many people that you could be speaking to right now and you offered an arrangement like that would say to you, no, that's not fair? And that's just literally how I see JVs now.
But I think the good thing you're doing is you're playing with the numbers to make it fit for both sides. Because some people have a strict policy that, no, this is what we do, this is what we offer, this is what we take it or leave it. Whereas your one is, let's see what works best for the investor and yourself, and then put them together.
I'll bring another concept up, which is Sharia finance, or making a deal Sharia compliant. Now, obviously, for those that don't know about Sharia compliance, is effectively where there's risk on both sides. An investor has their risk, the developer has their risk, as opposed to you promising a fixed return. Now, we've done this with angel investors where you come to me and you say, Saif, I want, I've got 50 grand. I look at you and I say, like, Zed, there's not a lot you can do with 50 grand these days. You can go out and just, why don't you just buy a house on a mortgage and just do it up that way and just keep hold of it, but your 50 grand stuck at the end of it. Or you look at it and say, Zed, I can offer you a 10% profit on your cash, on your 50 grand, if you wanted to margin that in with me. Now, when you look at it from that perspective, I'm not saying to you I'm going to give you a 10% fixed return. I'm aiming to give you a 10% profit on your cash. So you've brought 50 grand to the table. You're expecting roughly 5K or 55k back. Now my deal, which is a flip, requires 100 grand of capital, but has a profit come the end of it of, let's say, 20k. Keep the numbers easy. It's a flip, it's 20k of profit come the end of it. I'm effectively giving you 5 of the 20k that's available. I'm giving you 25% of the profit of the deal for your 50 grand. But that 25% is expected to give you a 10% return on your investment. So your ROI is 10%, but you have control of 25% of the deal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And what that allows you to do very easily is share that risk on both sides, because that deal could do worse. That deal could only make 10 grand overall, and you're only making 2.5k, which is a 5% return for you. Or that deal could be amazing, and you could be making 14%, 15%. Yeah. Whereas when you're winning better, I'm winning better as well. So that's, I found, has been like one thing that you just can't underestimate these days is actually doing business in a Sharia manner. What I found from a finance perspective is that the taps just turn open. There is so much Sharia compliant finance available out there from private individuals that want to deal in that aspect.
There's a lot of private individuals now who are more like, these are the funds I have, take it. I just want 20%, 30% on the cash. And are you finding that these private individuals who are coming to you and you're offering them this Sharia compliant method, that they're coming back to you, they're making a lot better return than expected?
So first thing is that we couldn't afford to give somebody a 20%, 30% return. Typically on deals, you're making anywhere between 15 to 25%. And if we were offering 20% of a return, there wouldn't be any margin left for us on the capital. So that's the first thing. It comes back to managing expectations on that side. We'd be typically offering an individual anywhere between sort of 8 to 12% profit on their cash. Now, the way you look at it is if you were buying a project yourself for 50 grand, and that's all the capital that you had, and you put down a deposit on a mortgage, and you did the renovation works, you did everything along them lines, and got that built up to a level where it was now cash flowing for you, your ROI would typically be about 8-9%. Yeah. So after mortgage payments, everything, you'd be left with net income 8% of whatever the cash invested was. You buy a property cash, and let's say you went in 120 grand, there was no mortgage, there was no nothing, you typically would be looking at about a 7% yield up here right now with how the market is. So the fact that we're offering you an 8 to 12% return in a similar manner, it gives you the artificial feeling that you are investing in property, but we have the knowledge to be able to leverage and make a better return on cash on deals than, say, somebody that has just got money sat in the bank. And it's our job to be able to use the capital of investor A, who's brought that money to the table, and make more money on top of that for ourselves. Because at the end of the day, we're all here to make money. And the minute people understand that for them to make money, the operator needs to make money, and once that is accepted, then the floodgates open.
I want to talk to you more about your business. So you started the business while you were at Capland, is that correct? When did you leave to go full time?
So I left in, I believe it was April 2021 now. So it was a year into COVID. Looking back at this, it was probably a very difficult period, because what happened was we had probably 5 confirmed project management jobs that were due to happen, and all 5 of them got cancelled. So we had 2 already running, and all 5 of them got cancelled purely because the budgets that we had set, the actual numbers were coming through at like 40% more, and the deals just didn't stack. or the investors thought that, this guy's taking us for a ride. They fell through for whatever reason. So we had a period for a few months where things got really tight. It was difficult, but at the same time, I don't know, I felt like for the first 6 months, I felt like I was more efficient when I had a job than when I didn't have a job. Does that make sense?
Because you're a bit more laser focused.
Yeah. Because you know what the priority tasks are that you need to do. You know what the stuff are, like, oh, I'm going to go out and I'm going to send letters out to dilapidated properties in the area and try and get some direct to vendor leads. You never had the time to do that when you were in a job. But suddenly you're now wanting to do that, and it might not be the best return on time. So there's loads of little bits like that. Loads of little bits of, you're going out and doing viewing stuff that you probably didn't even need to go and view. I just felt like I was just more of a busy idiot more than anything. Whereas now I feel like I'm back at the point where I'm treating my job, like a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 7 as such. Some scenarios yesterday I was having to do a bit of work for, half an hour at 11 o'clock in the evening. But that's because, or else today is just going to be manic. So I think there's a lot of myths and a lot of hype that people put about working for yourself without the right sort of knowledge.
What was the deciding factor that made you quit your job?
I had 12 months worth of salary saved, and I realised that if it didn't work, I could just go out and find a job again.
You gave yourself 12 months.
I gave myself 12 months. And don't get me wrong, in some of those, like, I've then very quickly, within 6 months, managed to have the next 12 months saved. And that was cool. But then soon come to a period where, there were months where I'd be like, damn, how's the money going to come in for next month? But that's just business. And you'd be very, I found out I was very surprised what I could do under that level of pressure to make sure that business kept going and money kept coming in.
How did the pressure bring the best out of you?
Seeing the kids, figuring out, oh yeah, just imagining they're going to open the kitchen cupboard and there's not going to be any food in there.
And that was it is a big motivator.
Huge, massively. Even now, it's like, and there's a fine balance, she's not going to shout at me for saying this, but the biggest argument me and my missus have is that I work too much. And there's one line she always drops that I can never ever come back from, which is, I'm doing all of this work for my kids and for the family, for my mum, for my siblings, for my missus. But what's the point doing all this work for them if you can't enjoy your time with them now? And it's a catch-22. I just do not have the answer to it. I speak to anyone and everyone has the same problem.
It's one of them things where you're working for freedom of time, but you're using your time to work. And it's that circle which you get stuck in. What I found works well for me is I just completely switch off. I don't answer anything. Switch off. I very rarely answer messages from anyone work related after 6 o'clock. Interesting. And that does seem to work, but then I'll make sure I'm up early the next day. There's still obviously things going on in my mind that I need to do this, I need to do that, and it helps that I'll make a quick plan or whatever, but I think it helps that after 6 I just don't answer. Because once you answer one message, think, let me answer another. The replies come and you're not present in that situation.
No, it's
tough. A lot of people struggle.
Yeah, I struggle. I'm very open about it. Struggle massively when it comes to work-time balance. You ask any one of my relatives, and they'll always say that whenever Seth comes over, sometimes he's just stuck in that corner on his laptop doing work. But it's the journey for me. I'll come through it.
That 12 months that you had, what was the result at the end of the 12 months?
another 12 months. A ticket for another 12 months. And I feel like at the minute it's just about another 12 months. Even now, it's just building that ticket to give me another 12 months.
What kind of processes, systems have you built to get your business to this stage? Because obviously you're going to get new clients regularly. You're growing on social media, so you're getting clients through there. You need to manage the admin, the emails, the operation side. What kind of systems have you built?
I'm really poor at making systems. One, purely because I've always been a bit of a perfectionist. I've always been a bit of a get something done 110% as opposed to getting something done 80% and just, allowing to move on to the next thing. I've got staff now that work with me. So I've got an architect who works for us exclusively. I've got an admin assistant based overseas virtually, which helped massively. The problem I've got is sometimes it's struggling to find the time to be able to train them and put systems in place because I'm busy. But I need them to help me. So it's a fine challenge or fine line. For me now, I'm at a point where I feel like I need to get to a point where I've got, let's say, 6 months of salary dedicated to working on the business, whether it's no work being in, and I know full well that I'm just theoretically taking a break, whether it comes to the point where I've got passive income that replaces my role, where I feel like I can stop taking on project management jobs or stop taking on projects for clients to give me 6 months to build the system that I have, or I scale things right back down and maybe just do one project at a time to allow me to build up all the systems that I need to have for that one project, that one client, and then start scaling things back up again. But naturally, there's systems, there's task management systems. There's, one thing that I love at the minute is it's a software called Loom, which is like a screen recorder.
Yeah.
Quite often, sometimes I'll be working late at night, looking at a piece of work, but Trish is not available to jump on a call with me because it's 4 a.m. in the Philippines, for argument's sake. And all I'll do very quickly is I'll just record my screen, telling her exactly what I need to happen, or looking at this piece of work, what feedback I've got, send her the recording, and by the next morning when I wake up, that work is amended and it's done. So I think pushing your boundaries to not always have to do things the way that you want to do things and just seeing what's possible.
I think the issue we have in the property business is you can't plan your day to the T.
No, you can't.
Because you're not always sitting behind a computer. You're on a site, you plan to only be there for half an hour, but you can be there for 2 hours, 3 hours. And then all of a sudden, everything that you wanted to do during them extra 2 hours, you can't do. Or you have to push it till later. And that obviously has a knock-on effect on your...
Of course. I would love to have it where I could just dedicate Monday mornings, Wednesday mornings, Friday mornings to site visits. And I've got Wednesday afternoons, Tuesday full day, Thursday full day, and the afternoons on the other days, just to admin and catching up or having the odd meeting here and there and saying, right, okay, business is good, so I'm only going to restrict myself to 3 new client meetings. You just can't work like that. Tried to keep some form of rigidness, but all it takes is a tradesman or a builder or a delivery supplier or Electricity Northwest to say, oh, sorry, I can't do that time. Can you do this time? You look at your calendar and all you've got planned is admin and you think, yeah, go on then, I'll do it. And that's it. There's your schedule gone. So it's, I think it's a funny one, but one that you can only really grow on or develop on. But I feel like the only real way to succeed in this game is building that ever so much little bit of flexibility or that little window. So not maybe having meetings back to back, but I like to always put in at least like 4 or 5 hours of admin time in my day. And if anything, it's my admin time that suffers then as a result. If something runs over, you look at it and think, oh, I couldn't do that because I was at site for 3 hours. Why was I at site for 3 hours? Oh, because you were talking to the joiner for 2 hours. Why were we talking to the joiner for 2 hours? Or because I've not seen him in 6 months. Talk afterwards then. Or give him a phone call in the evening as you're driving home. and catch up there and restrict it to half an hour. So that's the other thing. And the other thing that's really, really cool that saved me a lot of time is planning a lot of calls and phone calls while I'm in the car.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because it, one, forces me to be in the car, and secondly, forces me to like make sure the car is like, so I've had it sometimes where my missus wants to go with me sometime, whatever, and we're just literally for the whole car journey, I'm just on the phone in certain scenarios. But I find that to be quite a useful little stopgap, really.
What I've found that works well when we're planning the day, because we're out and about a lot of the time, is only plan 4 to 5 hours of the day, and you're leaving 3 hours for any random things that can happen. And if them 3 hours you can utilize it, you can always do some of the next day's admin or some of the next day's work today. So that I found has worked a lot better, but it takes a long time to understand your own structure, to build your own structure. And I think that's the key part, because everyone has a different way of doing things, and to build your structure around the site visits, around the admin, and then around your team, who obviously need your time as well, and then around your family, is not the easiest thing to do.
No, of course not. One thing I've started to do to some form of degree is any like block repeatable work, I'm like putting that time into my calendar as if it's a meeting, but it's actually a task. And I find that that allows me to make sure that I'm not double booking myself on a admin meeting with myself. If I need to do this report for a client and it takes me an hour to do it, I'm just going to set an hour aside to do it. If, you know, I need to spend 4 hours on doing some bookkeeping, I have to find a window to do whatever. And then if just so by chance a new client comes to me and they're in town and they want to have a meeting, then I've got to be strict with looking at what can I push, what can I do in an evening? Or, you know, Mrs. is going away with the kids, she's going to her mum's or whatever. Okay, cool, I can do the admin there. I'll take a meeting with you, sort of thing. So it's just knowing what your own limiting factors are and working from there. Like, mate, I'm still here, like making mistakes every single week. But I guess it's all a nice little bit of learning, isn't it?
What's next for Saif?
There's some very, very interesting joint venture conversations that we're having right now, which will allow us to scale things up at a level where I feel like we'll be actually able to employ a project manager to work in the business, to do a lot of the day-to-day stuff that I'm doing. That will be game changer for me right now. The interesting thing that comes from it is me accepting that somebody can do something better than I can when they're like a fully trained project manager and I'm an accountant that just decided to become a project manager. So it's understanding it from that perspective, being able to take that risk, being able to understand that, right, okay, now I need to find the money to be able to pay this guy every single month or girl every single month. So that's, for me, it's staff and it's raising more finance to be able to do more deals. I can only do more deals with more staff, and I can only get more staff with more deals. I can only do more deals with more finance. So that's just my little circle at the minute.
If you had a 21-year-old Saif sitting next to you now, what advice would you give him? Fresh out of uni.
I don't know. I think I would say to them, just say yes to anything. If you're wanting to get into an industry, just say yes to anything. If you're wanting to become an estate agent, go to estate agencies and just say yes to doing voluntary work and try it. for me, my first project management job was when a client came to me and said, Saif, do you fancy PM in this? I had no experience of construction whatsoever. I was trying to source deals. I was doing very bad at it. And then this opportunity came through for me to convert a house to a HMO. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, let's do it. Done. Went home and absolutely crapped it. Like, what the hell have I said yes to? But just so happened. And then I remember the same feeling when I said, yes, I'll be able to project an 11-bed HMO. Going home, crapping it, thinking, what the hell have I just said yes to? And just by chance, it just happened. And I feel like saying yes within reason and figuring out later is probably one thing that I would put as a very big mantra for myself.
It's like they say, find the deal, figure out how to finance it
Yeah,
after.
yeah. If the deal's good enough, the finance will come.
Exactly.
Sort of thing.
Just a quick fire round before we finish. What's your favourite food?
Butter chicken.
Good choice. Favourite holiday destination?
Dubai.
Favourite book?
Eat That Frog.
Is that about doing the most difficult task?
Yeah, so it's about eating. So the idea of eating a frog is very raw, tangy, like, bleh, right? And you sort of get the same feeling when you have that task in your to-do list where you're like, you know it's a 3-hour task. You know your day is going to be so much more chilled if you get that done, but you know you cannot be bothered to do it at the same time. So the idea of eating that frog every morning and doing that one task that will just clear your to-do list and your mind up. If I just do it.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Time travel.
Forwards or backwards?
I want to say backwards, but then you can't come back forwards, then can you? But I say backwards.
And favourite day of the week?
Friday.
Everyone said that today.
Friday for me. Prayers in the afternoon and then chill with the family in the evening.
Saif, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
No, absolutely. It's been a joy to be on the platform.